Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Black Friday. This is Steph Lee, the founder of Host Agency Reviews. We're so glad you're joining us. Maybe you're joining us while you're shopping for the holidays. I'm not sure. But we have a co-host on today, maybe familiar to some of you. We have Dave Meihoefer with Travel Planners International. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Steph, how are you?
Good. Well, I'm especially excited because I feel that this is going to be our first Friday 15 where we're not going to run into any technical glitches. So fingers crossed.
It's always been an adventure. I will take partial fault for that because of some of my crazy travels and whatnot. I have a question for you though, Steph.
Talk to me.
Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the whole shopping thing.
Mm-hmm.
Are you someone that on Black Friday, whether it's in the stores or even online, are you one of those shopping hawks for Black Friday deals? Or are you like me? Well, if you're like me, you don't really do much shopping.
Yeah,
What's your deal?
that's me. Although I will say there's a local pet store that's a few blocks away from here that
Yeah.
they do a small business center, and they started doing it a few years ago where they give these huge giveaway bags, and I won 2 out of the last 3 years. And so I get really obsessed with their small business Saturday because I win these huge swag bags and I never win anything. But that's it.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm just curious, especially, Black Friday, selling travel on these deals. There's tons of
Yeah.
shopping for future vacations too. So,
Man, I am just tired though. You've gone for a while without any holiday breaks. I am tired. I don't want to go out shopping during my long weekend.
agreed.
Well, so hopefully those of you that are out shopping, having great finds, having a wonderful time, and those of you that are cozying in, know that Dave and I are with you in spirit.
That's right.
So before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone, if you haven't heard already, which you probably have because I've been mentioning it the last couple of weeks, but Host Week is coming up last week in January, and we want you to register. It's free. You can go to hostagencyreviews.com/Host Week. In the next couple of weeks, we are going to be getting up our schedule of the EduSpots, the education sessions. You can already see some of the hosts that we'll be interviewing, as well as some of the consortia, and more will be coming in over the next month as we wrap things up for that. So keep an eye out. We'd love for you to join us. Last year, we had 3,000 registrants, and I think this year we might break it. So spread the news to your friends. And Dave, I'm really excited about this week's questions because they're great questions that I feel like we haven't gotten some of these before. So our first one is, they're actually also all anonymous. So first one is, hi, Steph and Guest. Our host agency was just hit with fraud, and they sent a notice that will be responsible for any fraudulent bookings. Is this common? I'm new and I'm worried I will make a fraudulent booking and not know it. It would be helpful if we knew what to look out for and how to avoid bad bookings. So fraud, big thing within travel in general, and therefore host agency. So how do you handle things over at TPI with educating your advisors on fraud and best practices?
Sure. So, and this question could not have come at a better time. There's no good time for fraud, but just right with the state of new technologies and all these things happening in the digital world, and right, AI voiceovers, you hear about these scam artists with, they call, but it's not a human you're actually speaking to. And anyway, the whole fraud thing. So with TPI, and I know many hosts that are out there, ultimately at the end of the day, it is the responsible of the IC, right, and the agency owner to make sure that they're, not taking part in these fraudulent bookings and doing everything that they can regarding safeguards, having safeguards in place. And for me, it's that gut feeling. If something sounds too good to be true, question it and do your homework, double check it, triple check it. Steph, right, and I know you've been in the travel biz for a while, but when I say too good to be true, it's all of a sudden somebody wants to travel in the next 2 weeks and they want to spend $30,000 on their vacation. sounds like a nice commission, right?
Yep.
And who wouldn't want that sale? But that could be and should be a major red flag to make sure, the selling advisor is doing everything they can to make sure, is this legit?
Mm-hmm.
Credit card authorization forms.
Yep.
That's huge. People can read to you all day over the phone what their credit card number is and what that information is like, but you want to have as much documentation, and do as much homework as you can to make sure that the form of payment is legit and is that customer's credit card. Steph, I'm sorry, were you going to say something? Were you?
No, keep going, Dave. You keep naming off the fraud things, and I'll ping pong off of you, because definitely have learned a lot about fraud the last 20 years.
Yeah, the obviously going with your gut. If it's too good to be true, it very well may be. I mentioned the credit card authorization forms, travel insurance. Make sure they are taking the travel insurance as well. If they're not, that could be a red flag as well. Maybe they don't, they're only looking for that air ticket. They're only looking for that cruise, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
So, making sure they're taking the travel insurance. If they're not, consider that, red flag, possibly number 1, possibly number 2. If they're not taking the insurance, have them sign a waiver with you, right? That they're declining the coverage as well.
Always.
I mentioned, the last minute travel. I want to go away to somewhere in South Africa. If you're booking from here in the United States, or all of a sudden they want this flight over to somewhere in Australia, whatever it might be, some of these high ticket items, not just with flights, but just vacation packages in general. Typically, the more money they are talking about, quite possibly the bigger the scam, or the bigger the fraud that might be taking place.
Mm-hmm.
But what else do you have for me, Steph? I know you've been around the block.
Well,
your age. You've been around the block a while, though. So
I've been doing a lot of fraudulent things, so
Yeah.
I can tell you what's worked for me. So one of the other things to look for is if the credit card, the name on the credit card doesn't match any of the passengers. That's something that you can, and again, for all of these things, there's reasons why something may be happening that this would actually make sense. But usually, I think, Dave, the most important thing you're saying is listen to your gut. If this person came out of nowhere, you don't specialize in luxury travel, and suddenly they want to do 2 tickets that are business class, leaving in 10 days to somewhere in Africa or somewhere in Europe, that should be a red flag for you. And I would do as much research as you can into it. But if you're still feeling like this is still feeling really fishy, I would not do it. And I don't want to forget to answer back to Anonymous that it is normal that if you book a fraudulent ticket, that your host will hold you responsible for it, because you're the one that brought in the client and you're the one that's booking it. And so it's really important. A lot of hosts will have access to different resources to help you with fraud, so that you're aware of some of the red flags. And I'm also going to link to ARC, which is the Airline Reporting Corporation. And because they're dealing with airlines, they have a huge fraud prevention team, and they do a lot of webinars. They do some best practices. They talk about different schemes. So please check out this link that we're going to put in the description and in the show notes for everyone, because if you sign up they have their latest fraud webinar they'll put up there, and they have great information on what the latest scams are. But there's a lot of different things, because there's the friendly fraud, which means that it's somebody it's a client that and then usually what happens is they're doing a chargeback. They've actually taken the trip, and then they're saying they didn't take the trip. But then the not so friendly fraud is these random people that are trying to take advantage of travel agencies that may not know things. An example: never share your logins to your supplier portals. That should be just a given about anything in your life. Never give out your logins to anyone else. But that's something that's been done where people can get in if they're booking, again, in a very short window. If they're using, if you're suspicious, like the connection sounds different or you're hearing different things, they'll do a lot of things they'll call social engineering, which is they'll maybe say like, oh, I'm just out for a walk down by the East River Road. Like they'll know that you're in Minneapolis and then they'll name something nearby so that you feel like, oh, well, they're here. They know about this. But there's really simple things, you can do. You can Google the person. You can Google the information. If it's a company that's reaching out to you, see how long the website has been in business. Make sure that the website is filled out properly, because a lot of times maybe the homepage is, but then the rest of them, it'll be lorem ipsum, like they haven't fully filled it out. So there's a lot of different things.
I was going to say too, ask questions like, oh, how'd you hear about me? Pick their brains, right? Almost like you're qualify the client. Like, how'd they hear about you? Why did they reach out to you out of all these other advisors?
Exactly.
If they're not in the same state as you are, right? Like if you're based out of California and now somebody's calling you from the middle of Minnesota, New York, Maine, and you're like, how did you hear about me? Because I usually work with people in my local area. These are all red flags.
Exactly. And so we'll link to some of those tools. We do have a couple articles. They're older, but a lot of the fraud things, it's a little bit of a whack-a-mole. They're always coming up with like new ways of doing it, but there are certain things that tie together throughout all of this. One of those being those short booking windows and booking expensive things. And so we'll link to those, even though they might be a little bit outdated, but it should give you some ideas of things to look for and things you can double check if you're worried about something. So great question. Super important. Our next question comes in from Anonymous. I am curious about the industry practice regarding changing from one commission split level to another within a host agency. Is it customary to be paid on a booking based on what your split is when you entered the booking into your host commission tracking system, like when you made the booking? Or is it what your split is at the time of travel? Thanks for any insights. How do you do it, Dave?
Sure. Typically, it's what your commission split is at the time of booking.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to say, okay, everything at the time of travel, because that could go on right now for 2025, 2026, maybe into early 2027 in some cases. But yeah, it's going to be at the time of travel. So we would not grandfather in, right? And that, depending on your split, if it's going up or down, but what is your split at the time of booking, not the time of travel?
Yep. And that is Anonymous. That's really, I'm guessing what's happened is you're with a host agency and your host agency is telling you, no, the commission split is the commission split you were on when you made the booking. And to give you a big picture, that I don't know of any host agency that does it the other way around. And to give you a background information on why this is, because it may seem a little bit counterintuitive if you're newer to the industry, but with the tracking system, this back office systems within the travel agency community, when you are making that booking, it ties your commission level that you're at right now. So if they were to do it at the time where the client traveled, it's going to be a lot harder. You'd have to go in and manually change all of those, and it would just be a huge hassle. So that's one of the big reasons behind it. The other reason is if you're new and starting out, it's really common to be on, say, a 60% commission plan or a 70% commission plan. And the hosts make those more affordable, but they get more commission because they know that usually for new advisors, it's a lot harder in the beginning and they need more support. So that's what that 40 and 30% they're earning. But if they were to give you, say, a year later, you bump up to the 80% plan, then all of those bookings you made in the beginning, they wouldn't be getting that extra 10% commission, even though they were possibly providing more support. They would just be getting the 20% commission. So hopefully that makes sense. It's nothing nefarious. It's very, very common and probably due to limitations in the accounting systems, as well as I mentioned, just the extra support that's sometimes needed as you're getting started. All right. Last question. Oh, this is a fun one. I'm excited to hear what you're going to say here, Dave. So they are wondering, Anonymous is wondering, do you recommend new travel advisors have a marketing budget from day one? I know you need to spend money to make money. However, I'm unclear how much to spend and would appreciate some guidance.
Yes, yes, and yes. Always have a budget. Always have a budget. There's Steph, right? Like we've seen all different types of personalities and business philosophies and people that come into this travel game, and they come in to open up their own travel agency, and they come in with what they think is the best way to do it or the right way to do it. I think back to when I was a kid and my parents would tell me, okay, here's your allowance. I'm old, so my allowance like, okay, $3 for the week. Like,
Wow.
$3 in some cases. Like, okay, so now I had to budget it. $1 for candy. I got my other 75 cents for this, like whatever it is. But anyway, I don't mean to make light of it. So yes, have a budget. If you're just starting out, budgets are tight. Whatever you possibly have that you've initially recognized as, this is my bucket of money that I'm going to use for my business. Figure out how much are you going to utilize in this marketing budget, right? I've always been someone that says, okay, and this is, being in travel for quite a while, whatever I spend, I want to make back times 10. So, right? So if I'm going to spend $10, I want to make $100 for every $10 I spend, so on and so forth. Using that as a gauge, okay, you're being requested, right? And I'm just making stuff up now, but there's a local community festival and they're looking for people to set up tables, and you think it might be a great way for you to spread the word as far as you being a selling travel advisor in the area, and they're going to charge you, I don't know, $800 for that table, right? How much money do you want to make sure you're making back in bookings?
Mm-hmm.
You want to always multiply that. For me, it's times 10. Or you're going to be running an ad. You're going to be putting together, some paid social media. Multiply that times 10 and say, okay, that's how much money I want to make in bookings. Now, that doesn't say how much commission you want to make, right? I'm just talking about like your gross sales, that dollar amount. So figuring out a way, you want to break even, or you want to do better than break even, but you want to get your money back and then some when it comes to what you're making.
Yeah, that's perfect, because I would say minimum you want to make 3 to 4 times back. Sometimes it may take a little bit to see that ROI too. If you're starting to show up at, say, local fairs, it might take a little bit of name recognition. But one of the other things I think to keep in mind as you're getting started when it comes to like budget, because there's so many ways to do free marketing as well, that you should keep that in mind. Because I know for a lot of people, when you're starting out, you don't have a ton of money, and there may be a course that's $10,000 or $15,000 to help you get started for your agency. And they're like, you just need to sell X amount, which is very true. And if that works for you and you have that type of money, then I say go for it if you feel comfortable with it. But for a lot of people, I would just say when you're starting out, you do have to spend money to make money, but you also need to be responsible. Like going $15,000 in debt or $20,000 in debt right away, unless you have a game plan and have really thought this through. I've always been a very conservative business owner myself, like in terms of finances. I get really nervous that a huge pandemic is going to happen, or, something along those lines. But during the pandemic, this was partially due to the PPP loans, but we were able to not lay anybody off or reduce anybody's hours or reduce their wages, because I've always been so conservative with like the money that's coming in and out of host agency reviews. So that's something I would say too. Like, you definitely want to have a budget, and you definitely want to start marketing from day one, but also keep in mind, there are a lot of ways to do free marketing, and get out there and do networking. We've got a article called the $100 Travel Agency Marketing Plan that I'll pop in for people that are interested, and it kind of talks about some less expensive ways of advertising. And then Dave, I know like one of the things as an advisor gets more experienced is they'll have access to the co-op marketing dollars. How does that work at TPI? And can you explain what those are?
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, if I can, I'll take a quick step back and then I'll jump into that, Steph, because as you were speaking, you brought something to mind. Over the years, I've seen many travel advisors that come in and they say, okay, they think that spending money on, putting their company logo on a pen or on a T-shirt, and then they cash dump all these dollars into promotional materials and collateral, and thinking that their brand is going to be the next Coca-Cola or the next Disney or the next, these big name companies. And sadly, right, a lot of our individual travel agency names are not built to become these monstrosities. You know what? Go for it. But just realize, especially in your first startup, the first few months, that first year or 2 years, making sure you're strategically spending money that you can say, I'm spending X, and now I can see that it's going to bring me in $20,000 in bookings, $100,000 in bookings, whatever that potential might be. So that was that. As far as co-op goes, Steph, because that's a great point. Many of our partners that are out there, cruise lines, tour operators, hotels, whatever it may be, many of them, right, that they are the Disneys of the world. I'm not calling out our partners to say we need more co-op, but many of them do have budgets and these co-op budgets where they are looking to invest in travel advisors and travel agencies that they see potential with. Whether it's some tremendous idea, you have a great customer base, you have a brand new marketing initiative in mind that shows that it could be fruitful or that there's huge potential there. So building those relationships with your BDMs and the sales managers from our partners and tapping into those resources, they are gonna, right, Steph, they'll hold you accountable. They will ask you, what is the return going to be? What is your plan? So be ready for that. You can't just ask for money and throw it out in the wind.
Yeah.
They want to know that it's money well spent. But great resource right there with your partners. And that's, especially as a newer advisor, from day one, those are relationships you should look to start building and establishing so that now you have a partner to lean on.
Exactly. The other thing to point out with those too is that when if you're usually what'll happen, like say you want to do a booth at a bridal show and you're not going to be able to get co-op dollars from say Sandals and then also from Charisma. Sandals or whoever you're using for the co-op dollars and doing the marketing plan with, they're going to want exclusivity at your booth. So it can't be like you're putting up their competitors as well. So that's something to be aware of.
I was on the supplier side, right, for a while ago, Steph, and I used to, every now and then I would have a travel advisor approach me and ask me for, hey, we're doing this show, or we really want to, do a push for your brand, whatever, 2 months from now. Okay, we start talking, establish how much money we're going to spend, what the plan's going to be like. And then they break the news to me. Oh, and by the way, we're going to be bringing in this other cruise line, and I was always the one like, nope, can't do it. It's got to be exclusive. It's got to be all about me and my brand and all these things. But with that said, right? Because it's like anybody, as an individual agency owner, you want all eyes on your agency, right? And on what you do. So same thing on the supplier side, be mindful of that, right?
Yeah.
The event is all about that partner.
For sure. For sure. You definitely, if they're going to be giving you 50% of your booth price, you want to make sure that you're giving them the respect that they deserve for giving you that. So let's see, Dave, we are going to link to TPI's profile so people can take a look and read the reviews, that sort of thing. Is there anything else you want to direct people to, places, your main website, emails, anything along those lines?
Yeah. Friend me on Facebook.
Yay!
Dave Meihoefer, my name, I don't know. Can they see my name spelled correctly here, Steph? Meihoefer, M-E-I?
That's a great question. No, they can't. I don't think so, at least.
Yeah. So you could simply look up Dave, D-A-V-E, Meihoefer, M-E-I-H-O-E-F as in Frank, E-R. Shoot me a friend request on there. If I don't reply because I look, sometimes you don't know who's, shoot me a message. Just say, hey, Dave, was listening to you with Steph, Friday 15, all this stuff. And friend me on there. I love building connections with obviously advisors all over the country. And then And then, yeah, travelplannersinternational.com is our website with tons of information about our brand. And the one thing we do, we're talking about today, right? We're talking about commission splits and levels. We're talking about fraud prevention. We're speaking about, marketing budgets and whatnot. I know with TPI and all the, the good hosts out there, there's lots of resources at your fingertips. So.
Definitely. And we will try to find the link for Dave's Facebook profile so you guys won't have to dig around and end up with like a random Dave Meihoefer in Northwest Canada or something.
There are my name's somewhat unique, but yeah, there's some other Meihoefers out there.
Oh, yeah, Steph Lee is a doozy when you try to go in there. Well, let's see, coming up, I can't believe we're already going to be in December, but December is next week. So we're going to have Dugan's Travel on next week as our co-host. The following week, December 13th, is going to be Travel Edge. And then we round out the year. I'm just going to tell you the last two are with Dugan's Travel. So December is a Dugan's party. And if you would like to sign up and get email alerts or text messages when the Friday 15 comes on and know what the topics are ahead of time, you can go to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15. And if you have time, because it's Black Friday and you're bored, you can also leave a review for us on iTunes. So Dave, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Steph. Always a pleasure, and have a good rest of Black Friday. Good weekend.
Thank you. Definitely
Cyber
will.
Monday. Don't forget Cyber Monday.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget Cyber Monday, everyone. And we will see you next Friday for the Friday 15. Thanks, everyone.